School kids on the Suncoast got an unexpected early vacation this week, but as soon as schools reopen next week after the Irma cleanup, it will be back to work and in some cases back to the reality where some kids are subjected to bullying. It's an age-old problem, and some families are turning to centuries-old techniques to defend themselves, the martial arts and boxing. Joining us for more is Mandy Sands, whose son is taking self-defense lessons. Her son Daniel, Matthew Farhart, an instructor at the Jaco Boxing in Sarasota, and Sonny Parlin, an instructor at Gracie in Bradenton. Thank you all for joining us today. And Daniel, I was, boy, that story that your mom told in Jess's report was so incredible. And let me start by asking you, prior to that one incident, did you have any problems with bullying, or did any of your friends that led you to take some of these lessons?
I had no friends that really led me to take to any of the lessons, but I definitely seen around this, like my old schools, I've seen lots of kids getting bullied, and yeah, it's just.
Let me ask you this: after that incident, did it get around that this is one kid that you don't want to mess with?
Kinda. Like kids were talking about this, they were walking up to me, and some kids were congratulating me and telling me I did the right thing because things spill at school, so it spills like that.
Now, after that one incident, you went straight to the principal's office and reported what happened. But Mandy, when I listened to the story, the obvious question might be, you want your kid to be able to defend themselves, but if they get into some kind of physical confrontation, you know how it works in many schools. Principals may not be, might say both sides are wrong and then take some kind of action.
Yeah, he got in trouble from the school perspective, but I'll say as a parent, I was proud of my son for defending himself and somebody else who wasn't able to defend themselves. I've always taught my kids that I don't want them starting a fight, but at the same time I felt like in this instance it was very justified. The school took the stance that he had to be suspended because of a county policy. I will say that the principal said that she understood why he did what he did, but that she had to take a no tolerance sort of policy. I took him out to lunch. I was proud of him for doing what he did. Again, I don't support violence that's not necessary, but I taught my kid to defend himself and other people that can't defend themselves, and I would stand by that 100%.
Matthew and Sonny, here's the real question. The kids that you have coming in order to learn how to defend themselves because of issues like this, do they usually come in before or after there's a problem?
A lot of times it's after, unfortunately. But fortunately, because they're coming, they didn't get too hurt, and they want to learn. So it's a good thing that they show up. But yeah, usually unfortunately it's because of an incident that already happened.
Matthew, same question.
I would say that the ratio is about right. I think of all the youths that come in, a greater percentage are being preemptive. They want to work on self-confidence, fitness, learning how to defend themselves. But the percentage that does come in regard specifically to bullying, yeah, the first step has already happened. They have been bullied already.
The one interesting little tidbit that you had in Jess's story is that you had a situation where a kid was able to use a technique he learned in boxing that was really basically not throwing any punches, but to avoid a physical contact. So you don't always, in terms of boxing, always have to hit back. You in many cases can just know how to move.
I would say that's the case. Even from the sounds of Daniel's story, it sounded like he was able to diffuse the situation without actually throwing a punch. And in the case of the child that was working with me, he was able to stop that bullying from happening by showing, hey, I know what I'm doing. Do you know what you're doing?
Okay. We are just getting warmed up on this topic. We'll have much more right after we check on First Alert weather, so stay with us. Welcome back. We are talking about bullying in the schools and part of the art of self-defense. And joining us for more is Mandy Sands, whose son is taking self-defense lessons. Her son Daniel, Matthew Farhart, an instructor at Jaco Boxing in Sarasota, and Sonny Parlin, an instructor at Gracie in Bradenton. And Daniel, let me ask you again. How many of your friends or even classmates in school, what percentage of them do you think take lessons, whether it's boxing or martial arts or something like that, for the same reasons that you do?
I can't tell you the exact percentage, but a very low amount. I feel like kids should take more self-defense classes so they know how to defend themselves and not fight, not getting in a fight. It doesn't always have to be throwing punches. You can just, again, when he said, you can learn how to shove them out of the way in order to get out of the bathroom or wherever you're getting trapped in. Or
How often do you see conflicts like this in your school?
Pretty often.
And what, what's the basis of it? I mean, my son just graduated high school. He would see things like this all the time. But we've all been there. But what are you seeing these days in terms of the root cause of bullying and why kids are doing this?
Mainly social media. That's definitely a big part of what causes bullying, and yeah, just social media and kids shoving other kids around, or it can be really stupid things that can be fixed.
Mandy, this is something that, as I said at the outset, is age old, but when you're talking about social media, and it really kind of explodes the ability to disseminate things about other people in good and bad ways.
It does, and unfortunately a lot of kids are sitting behind their desks or their phones now, and they have no filter. They think that they can just say something about another kid, and it starts off, I think a lot of times they send it to one friend or a small group of friends, and before you know it, it's all over the school. Last year my kids dealt with that in a very personal way, where Daniel actually ended up in a situation where one kid got mad at him, and before you knew it, it was through a bunch of kids. And kids don't think what they're saying to one group, and then before you know it, kids show up at school in a mob-like mentality wanting to throw punches, and they don't think about it. And in all honesty, I think that my kids who know how to defend themselves, carry themselves now in a much more confident way, where they don't feel like they have to go and throw a punch because they feel confident enough about themselves and who they are and what their body is doing, that they don't feel like they have to just go and randomly get in fights with people. Not a funny story, but last year other kids, I don't know whether they knew that my other son was related to Daniel or not, but they actually asked my son Kyle to beat up this child. And, it was like a joke. I'm thinking, what, are you kidding me? I mean, kids are now soliciting other kids to beat kids up on their behalf. It's ridiculous because kids just think we're just going to throw a punch here, but more confident kids have that confidence to say, I don't need to get in a fight with you.
Sonny, Matthew, how young are you seeing kids coming in there, in terms of their parents wanting to basically give kids this kind of education and training?
Well, we get them as early as 5.
In my experience, I've had more the middle school age are the ones that are dealing more specifically with confidence issues or dealing with bullying. A lot of my elementary, especially my early elementary, are just more there for the fitness component, the confidence component, the ability to improve themselves without the worry of it being a competition, and just making themselves better. And I'm developing those habits with our different drills and making it a game. I'm sure the same way Sonny does.
Yeah,
But for the middle schoolers, it's more, hey, I want to learn how to be able to defend myself and all of that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, for the 5-year-olds and the 6-year-olds, it's just games to them. They don't even understand that they're learning to fight. It's not until they reach his age that they start to realize that what they're doing is actually
Well, I would
useful.
imagine you have clients who are there for a number of different reasons, including athletic reasons, and they're going to go and they're going to take jiu-jitsu or they're going to box and eventually, compete in that way. But here's the real question here is, and I don't know, tell me if you can train people to defend themselves specifically from bullying and things like that, as opposed to training in the martial arts or in boxing the way it has always been done. Is there a difference?
You can. And I'll tell you, I'm sorry, but I know you were talking to them, but my other son, I'll tell you, he was specifically put in this because he was a very small child who was ripe to get bullied. He was a very quiet child. He's not a fighter. He's not a fighter at all. And I just wanted him to have the confidence not to get bullied. And he's now grown into a very strong young man who's very confident. He has no intention of going and starting a fight with anybody, but he is now so confident. He's the one who the other kids asked to beat up this kid, and he's not going to hurt anybody, but he's now sort of, I don't want to say bully proof, but he walks around with a certain confidence, a certain air about him that he's putting himself out there as, don't mess with me, you know?
So is the training different for a young person who wants to go into boxing or martial arts athletically, as opposed to somebody who is there to learn important skills in terms of self-defense and preventing bullying?
It's all, in my opinion, it's all the same. We teach the kids pretty much all the same stuff. We teach them how to defend themselves, and if they want to get into competitions and do that, they can. It's fine, but we don't force them to. So they can come, and what they're going to learn is they're going to learn self-defense. But if they want to take it further than that, that's great. We'll help them do that too.
Yeah, the proper technique for, a chokehold or a proper punch or whatever it may be is going to be the same whether you're learning self-defense or whether you're learning fitness. So both of us are going to use those same tools to teach them. But going off of what Manny said, a big deal for us is, at least for our side, and I'm sure with Sonny as well, is that fitness component as well. When you are more confident and you are developing those good habits, it does make you a little more bully-proof. It makes it harder to be attacked.
And you touched on this before, but have you or has anyone tried to have a conversation with the school district to say, look, I'm teaching my kid this art of self-defense, and there has to be some more appreciation of it in terms of discipline in the school?
I'm glad you bring that up. I hadn't before, but I've recently been hearing from more and more friends and just anecdotally through other people and some social network sites that I'm part of about their kids simply trying to defend themselves and them being, suspended and it causing them problems with their sports programs and other things. And I do think this is something that needs to be addressed. My kids are just now, in middle school and going to be going to high school, and it's going to have more of an effect on them. And it definitely needs to be addressed because kids are afraid to defend themselves for fear of losing sports scholarships and stuff like that. And it's terrible because kids shouldn't be afraid of that.
We have to take a quick break, and we're going to return for final thoughts right when we return. Bullying and self-defense, our guests join us right now for final thoughts. And Sonny, you wanted to make a point when I asked the question about whether the school districts have an appreciation for kids who want to learn how to defend themselves.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan at all of these zero-tolerance policies. And I just saw an infuriating video of a girl who was walking down the hallway, and she was getting punched in the face repeatedly, and she was saying, nope, I'm not going to get suspended for you. Nope, I'm not going to get suspended for you, as she was walking down the hallway, taking punch after punch in the face until she finally got to an adult, and an adult stepped in. Yeah. That's ridiculous.
And Matthew, you were a teacher for a couple of years?
Yeah, I was a teacher for a couple of years, and the biggest thing that I agree that those zero-tolerance policies can be a little difficult. I think the theme, though, of why we're being proactive with self-defense courses, whether it's going to their training or either of our gyms to learn self-defense, it's to put the onus on us, and as for Daniel and whoever, to kind of control the environment. And yes, it'd be great for the school districts to do this, that, and the other, but what we should work on controlling, I think, is us and each other. So if we can develop more confident individuals who are going to be able to defend themselves and not get caught up in that, then it'll be great.
Daniel, I'm thinking about a line from Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. You have these skills now, but is every kid out there mature enough to know when to use them and when not to?
No, I have lots of friends that have gotten bullied or that are getting bullied right now, but they shouldn't be afraid just to not step in. Like, they should go to, maybe give a school a call or something, and they should take one of the classes.
Right. And Mandy, the same question to you. I mean, you have an extraordinary young man there, but I would imagine that there could be situations out there that kids take what they have learned and use them in situations that are not appropriate.
That's absolutely right. I think that part of learning self-defense is going to a credible school with good instructors where they're going to get the leadership that they need. I think that's a big part of it. And I think that parents need to make sure that they check out the school and make sure it's a good, reputable school.
We have to leave it there. FYI, you can watch past discussions. They're on demand. They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. We want to thank all our guests for being here tonight. Mandy Sands, whose son is taking self-defense lessons. Her son Daniel, Matthew Farhart, an instructor at Jaco Boxing in Sarasota, and Sonny Parlin, an instructor at Gracie Bradenton.